We created Free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones of addicts who were suffering in silence, for the spiritual refugees who didn't have a place of belonging. A traditional church model doesn't create space for the conversations we know have to be had. Free is standing with those who are barely hanging on, who are longing for something new. Free is bridging the gap between spirituality and recovery. In this place, God meets us exactly where we are. This is what we stand for.
We're not a 12-step program for anyone that's new in the room. So most of our people have their own recovery programs that they work outside of the room, but also this is just kind of where we go to build out that spiritual piece of what our recovery program looks like. So welcome everybody. I'm glad to see each and every one of you here tonight. So at Free, there is one thing we don't do, and we don't do it, and we insist on not doing it so much that we say together at the beginning of every gathering, we don't do shame. And so on the count of three, just everyone in the room say, we don't do shame. 1, 2, 3.
We don't do shame.
Even if you're shady. Okay. A few quick announcements before we get the show rolling tonight. Before we get the party started, maybe that's better. A few quick things. If it's your first time here, or maybe you've been here a few times, but you haven't connected deeper with us, you can fill out a Connect card on that table back there. Donnie, who's right here, will take your Connect cards. And we'll also get you a coffee mug, or there might be a few shirts and a few sizes left if you would prefer a shirt. And if you put your phone number on there, I'll probably reach out to you and invite you to coffee, and we can talk about where you're at in your spiritual journey, and I can answer any questions you might have about our community here. Next, quick announcement, volunteering with us. So volunteers show up a little bit early, get things set up, maybe help Ryan with some AV stuff. They just make sure that the space is ready and welcoming to anyone who might come. Also, I will say our volunteers have a little bit more bonding time together. So a lot of times they're the people that know each other and know each other's stories and can sense in each other if, maybe something's a little off and you need to sit down and get a little extra support. So that's definitely true with our volunteers. And the third quick announcement is Phoenix is hosting their yoga again in this very building. So Phoenix, if anyone's not familiar with the Phoenix, it's activities for sober people and their loved ones or people that are friends with them. The yoga is led every Saturday here at 1 p.m. It's led by Candace. I think they might be doing a few weeks off, but you can scan the QR code or download the new form app. You can see other stuff that they do in there as well. And I think that is the last one. So the way that our evening goes down is we'll start off with some celebrations. Celebrations are just the good things that are going on in life. So just when we start, just raise your hand, share what's going good. There might be someone sitting, one row over that needs to hear it. And they could be anything. They could be sobriety dates, maybe you just got a job or housing or all those good things that we start to get back in sobriety. And then we'll have like a 10 to 15 minute message on a recovery related topic. Followed by a song for us to just meditate and slow down and absorb and think and not be doing anything, which I think in today's world we spend too much time doing and not enough time not doing. So the length of a song will probably be long for some of y'all, and some of y'all like Ryan, who told me the appropriate time to meditate was 20 minutes. It might feel painfully short, but either way we try to meet y'all in the middle. Then it'll be followed by a guest storyteller, which is actually Ryan tonight. If anyone knows Ryan, they probably like the dude. He has a great story to share and a great outlook on life where he can carve out what his sobriety looks like for him. and not really give a damn what other people think about it, which I definitely love and appreciate. After that, we'll do heartbreaks. So those are just the things that are a little too heavy to carry out of the room. We'll also pass around the microphone for that, and then close in prayer. So does that sound good? Yep. Everyone agree to that? Any disagreements? No? Okay, if there was, Eric, you can talk to Martha about it. She'll get you in line. Yeah, I know. Yes. The care professional against the biggest care need. It was the Holy Spirit herself couldn't have seated them better. So let's get started. There's good things going on in everyone's life, and I'm sure everyone in the room would want to hear about it. There's nothing too big or too small to share. So, Eric, you're going to start.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. So, I was a little opposed to it at first, but I start. It's court ordered, but still, I start anger management next month, and I was really, really nervous about it. And then, the people there are really nice, and I'm actually excited because, they're having me write this anger log, where I have to write what the situation was, and then my intrusive thoughts, what I was thinking during that moment, and then the emotional level 1 to 10. And it's really starting to make me think about it before I'm even taking the course. So I'm excited. Hopefully these tools help me with my
anger.
Yeah.
And one quick note, if you're joining us online, I know we're having a little bit of connectivity issues, but if you're joining us online, feel free to drop in the chat. We'll celebrate with you in the room. If you're joining us from a treatment center, just let your case aide know, and they have my contact information so they can send your celebrations on over.
I celebrated 1 year on 4/30 of meth free. So I'm still working on total sobriety, but the big one is taken care of.
Do you want to pass around the mic too, Matt?
Hi, I'm Aaliyah. Yesterday, I celebrated 8 months of sobriety.
Woo!
Hey everyone, Donnie, addict. So one of my old friends came into town and I was able to show up because I'm sober, and I was able to introduce him to a lot of my sober friends. He should be here in a bit. I think he's running a little bit late, but I don't know, it was cool because there's been many times where I've made plans with people and I wasn't able to follow through with it because I wasn't able to stay sober. So yeah, I just want to share that with everybody.
Yeah, that's a big win.
Hi, Paul, recovering alcoholic.
Hey, Paul.
This month I celebrate 8 months of sobriety.
Woo!
Damien, addict, and I recently made 2 months of recovery.
Woo! I was waiting for a lull, but on Wednesday I had 8 years of sobriety. And if anyone's sobriety day is happening on a Saturday, let us know. We might hit up our baker Andy and see if we can get a nice little cake going. So if your sobriety date falls on a Saturday, just let us know. So.
Hi, I'm Martha, and I'm the loved one of an alcoholic. And my celebration is that I was having a pretty tough day yesterday, and I knew who to call. And it got me through a rough patch.
Woo. For the person who is who to call for so many people, I'm glad you have people to call to, right? Awesome. Any last minute? Last call? Okay, perfect. I think we have a video coming. Those connectivity issues are... Let's see. There we go.
Life doesn't ask permissions. It just changes everything. One day you know who you are. Then suddenly, you don't. This is the in-between, where everything shifted, but you haven't caught up. If you've ever asked, who am I now? This is where we start digging.
Okay. So we're in the middle of a series called Who Am I Now? And it just kind of explores that question of you get sober, or maybe your loved one gets sober, and so much of your identity is kind of tied up into whether it's your addiction or someone else's addiction or asking questions. Or maybe you're just a human being, one of our spiritual refugees in the room, where the life around you changes and all of a sudden you're just like, what is it the big book says? You feel like a donut, right? With just a big hole in the middle of you where things don't always connect. And so anyone that knows me might know that for a time I was an accountant. Anyone know that I was an accountant? I'll come out to all the rest of you. I used to be an accountant. I used to be a record keeper for capitalism. So, which if you know me, that probably already feels a little suspicious, right? Could anyone in the room see me sitting around in front of some spreadsheets all day? And I didn't choose accounting because it was a good fit for me, to be honest. I chose accounting because it made sense on paper. The year was 2008, the economy was falling apart, and really the accountants were the only people that were getting jobs. And it didn't hurt that I was pretty good at it. I could ace tests. I even passed all 4 parts of the CPA exam, which if anyone knows anything about licensing exams, it's one of the hardest ones that exists. And on top of that, the accounting program at the University of Missouri was business school. It was prestigious, and I liked prestigious. I liked being in the program with the highest GPA requirement. I liked being in the program where everyone else was desperate for jobs, and in accounting, the firms were desperate for you. The year that I started as an accountant, Business Week called it the CEO factory on their cover. And truth be told, like a quick look at LinkedIn or Facebook of the people that I started, in fact, are doing pretty impressive in their careers. My ego loved the idea of walking into a big, respectable firm and feeling like I'd made it. But here's the problem. I was not built for that work. 80-hour weeks aside, sitting in front of spreadsheets all day, auditing numbers, and eventually auditing the systems behind the numbers, it was pretty soul-crushing. It was dry, like painfully dry. And I wouldn't describe myself as a dry person, right? I'm kind of feral, if anyone knows me. I'm just a little feral. And some people might say I'm social, or that I like to have fun, or that one of my skills or one of the things that brings me joy is connecting with people. And I'm so social, in fact, that one time on a performance review at the accounting firm, they called me chatty. And so chatty, we can unpack the word chatty. You know, it's a word that's traditionally used to describe women to devalue their words, right? But regardless, I wasn't a good fit for the accounting firm. And it wasn't just that I like to talk, it's that I like to move around a lot. It's that I don't like sitting in a seat or a desk, and in accounting, being feral is kind of a problem. Not exactly a feral-friendly career path. So if anyone's feral and considering accounting, I directly advise you against it. So I eventually, in this career path for several years, grew to believe that I was the problem. Like I just couldn't be happy doing real work, or any work for that matter, and maybe even I was broken. Maybe there's something inside of me that just wasn't cut out to be successful. And if I'm being honest, I believed that story that lived in my head for a very long time. Because when the environment you're in tells you that the way you naturally are doesn't fit, you don't question the environment, you often question yourself. So I tried to adjust. I tried to make myself smaller and be a little quieter and maybe a little more focused. Maybe that's why meth was so appealing. But I tried to be less me. And that didn't work. This level of disconnection between who I was and what I was doing with my life led me to have the need to numb the life that I was living. And as an addict, I had a pretty clear path to numbing the life that I was living. It was first through alcohol, then it was later through drugs. And then whenever I started dealing drugs, eventually not working as an accountant and trafficking drugs, that's a logical leap, right? Let me just not work as an accountant because this job isn't fit for me. Let me start trafficking drugs. It was almost like I felt a certain level of relief there. I wasn't stuck at a desk. I could move around. I could do my own thing. Because you can only fake alignment for so long before something inside of you starts to push back. I see Alea nodding, right? Like any of our trans friends in the room probably understand that to a T. You can only fake alignment so long before something starts to push back, right? And when something inside of you breaks, you really have no control over where it goes. And when you live outside of alignment long enough, you don't just feel tired, you start to feel restless, irritable, discontent. You're irritated and you don't really know why. Like your life looks fine, but it just doesn't feel right. Because something in you knows that this isn't me. And for the people in this room, when we feel that way, we have a really easy solution in our back pocket. But it has some pretty extreme side effects. And here's the danger. If you don't listen to that voice, you'll find something to numb that voice. Where you're living in a way that looks right on paper, but it doesn't feel right in your soul. But luckily, spirituality provides us a better solution to these questions than using drugs and alcohol, and especially quitting a job as an accountant to become a drug dealer. We have a much better solution than that. So 10 out of 10 don't recommend. When we're in touch with our soul, we hit a moment where we have to ask, am I actually living my life or am I performing a version of someone else's life? There's a great quote, and we used it several months ago for our authenticity message, but the Bhagavad Gita talks about this. It talks about how this guy is preparing for battle and he's wearing this big fancy suit of armor. Do you remember when we talked about that? And his mentor says it's better to be authentically yourself than inauthentically someone else. We even talked about the story of David and Goliath and how David tried to wear this big burly man's armor and he couldn't even walk in it. Sometimes trying to be someone else feels like we're wearing someone else's armor into battle. And alignment isn't only something that revolves around work. It can be in friend groups. It can be in the way we carry ourselves in public. It can be even in relationships, and not just romantic relationships, interpersonal relationships. It's exhausting to feel like we always have to perform someone else while no one knows the real us. Has anyone ever been in a group of friends after they did something that was heinous and thought, this just isn't who I am? I remember one time I was at fellowship and the entire conversation surrounded paintball. If anyone knows me, they know that isn't me and that isn't my interest. And if I pretend like I like paintball for long enough, I'm probably not going to be happy. But maybe it's something more serious. Like one time I was at dinner and a friend was bragging about cheating on their partner. I've even been in a volunteer group that was talking all shady about their donors, like they were simply money factories and not human beings to care for and support, that they were grateful that they gave them something in return. For the past few weeks and for the next few weeks to come, we're exploring a simple yet difficult question. That question is, who am I now? The answer to that question is often about looking at who we are and seeing that maybe something needs to change. And I think we get tripped up in that right away because the language we often use. People love to say you just need to find yourself. Have you ever talked to someone who's finding themselves? But if you're always growing and always changing, who exactly are you trying to find? It's like shooting at a moving target. Maybe the answer is, who actually am I now, is really looking inside of ourselves and seeing what is going on outside and making those two things not match. Sometimes the answer to the question is more about the environment than the insides. And trust me, the last 2 weeks, the next 2 weeks, we talk a lot about the inside. So this isn't a free pass not to change or grow. But this week we're talking about maybe our environment just doesn't fit who we are anymore. Because when the insides change, something on the outsides often have to change to match it too. Maybe you're not even lost. Maybe it's just your higher power telling you it's time for your environment to change to match who you are becoming. So maybe the goal isn't to find ourselves, right? Maybe it's to be honest about who we already are. Knowing who you are helps you navigate these seasons of becoming. Because maybe you're not lost, maybe you're just evolving. So maybe the goal isn't to find yourself, maybe it's to be honest about who you already are. So let's be honest. Being true to yourself is one of those phrases that sounds really good. No one's going to say, don't be true to yourself, unless who you are is kind of a shitbag, and then they might. But the phrase actually means nothing until you actually try to do it. And you can't really do it until you have a little self-awareness about who you are. Because being true to yourself is not doing whatever you want, or following every impulse, or building a life around comfort. Being true to yourself is much harder than that. It's telling the truth about who you are, even when it costs you something. It's choosing alignment over approval. It's choosing honesty over fitting in. It's choosing to live in a way that actually matches what's real inside of you, instead of whatever makes other people comfortable. Sometimes I think back to high school. Anyone ever think to high school, or is it just a trauma blackout for the entire room? But in high school, I had a fair amount of friends, believe it or not. It wasn't always being so obviously gay in the state of Missouri, growing up on a farm in a town of 4,000 people. Damien knows that's right. She's the only one in the room other than Justin who's been to Mount Vernon, Missouri. At least traveled through it. But whenever I was in high school, like many adolescents, I wanted to be cool and popular, right? Anyone want to be popular in high school, or were you more well-adjusted as kids? And truth be told, I succeeded at it. But I was talking to a friend about this over this weekend. We went to coffee, and we were talking about the things it takes for a queer kid to succeed in Southern Missouri, right? Things like toxic masculinity to fit in, or believe it or not, like, there's some things in high school that would have made me much happier. And part of me kind of grieves that like childhood self. Anyone ever grieve their childhood self? Because in high school, I played football instead of doing what I really wanted to do. Anyone have any ideas what I really wanted to do? Show choir. I really wanted to do show choir, right? Like, I would have loved show choir. I hated football. I hated hitting people. I hated two-a-day practices in August heat. Andy, did you like them? Were you that kind of weirdo? If anyone knows what two-a-day practices are, it's when it's so hot outside that they make you practice in the morning and the afternoon. But instead of practicing at dusk, you practice from like 11 to 2 when it's the hottest. So it really just gives you a break in the middle. I was miserable playing football in high school. I hated the smell of the locker room. I hated having to stand in the locker room and not look to the side, right? I hated it. And I would have loved dancing and twirling around while singing show tunes. I would have loved it. But I was just too cool to do what I actually wanted to do in high school. And because of that, I was pretty miserable. Trying to be someone I was not was a bigger issue than just what I did. It was ultimately an issue of misalignment between who I was and where I would have been the happiest or found the most peace. And that's where a word comes in that often gets misused or misunderstood. And that word is integrity. The term integrity can sometimes be a pretty weighty term. Integrity isn't about being perfect. Integrity isn't about living some way that fits some mold that was taught to us growing up. Sure, integrity does have a lot to do with not stealing from your grandma, right? But it is much bigger than that. It's about being aligned. Because ultimately, integrity is when who you are, what you value, and how you actually live are all aligned. And Scripture names this tension in Romans 12:2 when Paul says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing powers of our minds." In other words, don't shape yourself around what the world expects out of you. Let something deeper inside reshape you. Because a lot of us didn't lose ourselves by accident. We lost ourselves by adapting, by reading the room, by becoming who we needed to be to survive in moments where survival was the most important things. Because many of our character defects are actually just survival skills that no longer serve us. You were people pleasing because you had to be a good little boy to survive in the environment you grew up, right? You became cracking jokes that were inappropriate because that was a tool you used to build the community around you to survive. Character defects are just survival skills that no longer serve us, and I said it twice on purpose. There was a survival skill instead of playing football, instead of doing show choir. Being gay in a small religious town was a real, honest safety issue, and I had to protect myself. Those things we do in one season of life that helped us get by, but now weigh us down. That's what a character defect is. And as an adult, that internalized homophobia doesn't keep me safe anymore. It actually comes between me and thriving. In recovery, we call those things character defects. They're like we're wearing a suit of armor that helped us when we were in battle, but now we're trying to swim to shore and we're drowning in them. So integrity is when we stop shape-shifting and we let those survival skills that are also known as character defects go away and we start showing up as ourselves. The scary part about it is that integrity, this form of alignment, often costs us something. It might cost us approval or comfort. It's probably going to cost us certain relationships, and it'll most definitely cost us certain environments, because not every space benefits from you being fully yourself. Not every space was meant for us either. But without integrity, we might keep the approval and lose our very selves. So how do we know who we are in order to find that alignment? How do we discover what is going on the insides of our souls that we can ensure that our environment matches that? Well, first we have to discover what comes natural, what we are good at without really trying, what things we try so hard and are still not very good at, like I was not very good at football, y'all. Those things that our intuition points us towards. And in spirituality, those things are often called our gifts. Have you ever heard like your very, very Christian aunt be like, oh, you're so gifted in this category, or you're so gifted at playing piano? Gifts are those pieces of our disposition that come naturally to us. They aren't really something we learn. They are something that we can refine, but they are already there as if they're in our very DNA. In 1 Corinthians 12, as well as in throughout recovery literature, it says that there are different kinds of gifts. Different. That means we don't all have the same wiring, we shouldn't all have the same personality, and we don't all have the same way of showing up. We're different, and that's a good thing. But we've misunderstood what gifts mean. We think it means skills or talents, or in capitalism, something that can be monetized to make us rich. That's what we think gifts are. But gifts are actually these things that show up naturally. The way we move through the world when we're not pretending. And here's what I've learned. A gift in the wrong environment might actually look like a flaw. That thing they call too much might actually be our strength. My voice has always been too loud until one Sunday morning the AV system went out, and I can tell you that was a strength. All my life I've been afraid of being too much, too loud, too talkative, and I've carried that. But maybe that helps me connect with people. But for a long time I was ashamed of that. That very thing I tried to quiet is the same thing that allows me to connect with people, which to me is the most beautiful thing that can happen. It might actually be a gift. Maybe you're not too much. Maybe you've just been in spaces that couldn't handle you, or maybe you're not too quiet and shy. Maybe you could read a room and consider things before responding. That isn't a flaw either. That's also a beautiful thing. Who you are can be your biggest strength when you just own it. That's integrity. That's authenticity. We all have different skills to contribute to society. We all bring something special and unique, and that is a good thing. If we're all doing the same thing, it would be quite boring, and a lot of essential things would never get done. Imagine if there was just a bunch of Rayas walking around, right? Those accountants that I worked with, those people that can focus and get things done, those people that can consider things to notice when things don't look right, they're where they needed to be. That just wasn't me, and it's great. And the issue was never that we have undesirable traits, it's that we're misdirected. So recovery isn't always just stopping something. Sometimes it's about learning who you are and stop reaching for something to define you that just isn't you. Because if you don't know who you are, you will continue to search for something outside of yourself to define you. It might be a substance, but it can also be a relationship. It can also be a job, or it can be a room full of people that you just want to be besties with. But these aren't things that just happen inside of us. They're things that we live. They're communities that we interact with. Because the question isn't just, who am I when I am alone? It's often, do I stay the person whenever I enter into the world? In relationships or work or in any of the spaces that we occupy. Because it's one thing to know who you are, and it's another thing to exist in spaces that celebrate it. We talk a lot about work here because work is one of those, in this message, because it's one of those things that if we're misaligned, it can show up pretty quick. But work doesn't define who we are or our identity, although many of us in a capitalist society can easily feel like it does. How often do we meet someone new, and what's the first question they ask us? What do you do for work, right? But work is just one of the many places that this lack of alignment can show up. So there's this guy named John Wesley. He was an 18th century theologian, spiritual teacher, all that. He once said, gain all you can, but not at the expense of your soul. So if what you're doing is killing something essential inside of you, it's costing you more than it's paying you. Because your purpose may be what you do for work, but it may not be. Your purpose might look like being the friend who listens. It might be being the one who shows up, or maybe it's being the one that tells the truth when no one else has the courage to. Maybe it's being the one that creates connection, and none of that requires a job title. So maybe the question isn't, what am I supposed to do with my life? Maybe the question is, what's already true about me that I've been ignoring? You don't become whole by becoming a lesser version of someone else. You find wholeness by living the best version of you. And if anyone's ever read the intro to the 12 and 12, I don't think there's many. Anyone even know what the 12 and 12 is? The 12 steps and 12 traditions of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the intro to the 12 and 12 for Alcoholics Anonymous, it says something is the purpose of recovery. It says the purpose of recovery is to become happily and usefully whole. That's the reason we do this whole thing. Because when we feel something incomplete, we're a lot more likely to get fucked up. And isn't that a great thought, becoming happily and usefully whole? When you live in alignment with who you are, not just your values, but with who you are, whatever deity you believe created you as a person, when you live in that alignment, you start to feel whole. You become whole by being honest about who you already are and by having the courage to live from that place. Not just in your head, not just in safe spaces. Because the goal isn't to build a brand new identity when we're asking the question, who am I now? The goal is to stop abandoning the one that you already have. And when that starts to happen, you don't just stay sober, you don't just survive, you start to thrive. And maybe if you're feeling just a little bit lost in this season, it isn't about becoming someone new, it's about finally becoming who you already are. Him out from behind the AV booth for a little bit. Let's bring Ryan on up. Well, hello, Ryan. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Is it weird to be on this side of things?
Yeah. It's different. Different for sure.
Ryan. Since Ryan started, this is what some of you might not know. For every person in the room, there's about 2 or 3 people online watching through Facebook Live and YouTube and stuff like that. And Ryan's the one that lets those people from places that don't have a space like that see it. So it's because of this guy. So Ryan, just start off for people in the room that might not know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
I
So
feel like this plant is right in the middle of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Grew up Catholic. So you had a lot of the Catholic beliefs that sort of conflicted with me as I got older and, realized I'm gay, and more of the beliefs of the church sort of conflicted with that. So that was always a complicated thing. But, also growing up, I had a lot of the things that could be better with family life, with, my parents having a lot of drama, and there's trauma with some neglect and things of that nature. So it could have been an easier childhood for sure, but I was able to get through it. And at some point, I think around high school, I disassociated with the Catholic faith more so, and came up with my own belief system that worked for me, figuring out God in a more spiritual context. Sort of the New Age belief systems, where I was able to figure out some meditation and other modalities that more aligned with what I thought spirituality should be, and outside the religious context. And eventually I got into college and sort of let that stuff fall by the wayside. And for the longest time, things were okay. I really didn't drink or do any drugs or anything of that nature. And then I think it was when I started getting into more of the startup culture that I let my guard down and started drinking more, just to fit in with people, because then that was more of a thing. You just fit in, you drink a beer after work. And some of these people would go to the bar and drink 2 or 3 or get a whole bucket of them. And it just became more
Hey, I feel attacked. We used to get the buckets of beer and then steal the buckets. we would drop them off of the back patio of the bar and go collect them on our way home.
Oh my gosh. So I don't know, at some point I figured I work so hard and I see people on shows drinking, why don't I just drink? And it just became sort of this slow, gradual buildup where I started drinking 1 day a week, outside of going out to dinner or going out to an after party. And then it became more, one night became 2 nights, 3 nights, every night. And it just became a slow ramp up where I didn't think it was a big problem. Gained weight a little bit, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Then COVID came, and I just started to really sort of self-medicate more with more alcohol. And eventually I got into this relationship with somebody that did crystal meth, and it became a thing where I saw them do it, and then just sort of let my guard down, like, oh, I guess I should try this. And they do it, I could do it. And then that just led to the whole situation where I realized my life become unmanageable after a while of just, I couldn't keep using and live a life that I wanted to live. And, it was a little bit of a rocky road to get into recovery, but eventually I was able to find footing in CMA, and then eventually other groups that helped me to get where I am today.
Yeah. And you, one thing I really respect about you is the God as you understand God. Like you take that as exactly what it should be, right? So tell us a little bit about how you, your spiritual journey to get there, and a little bit about what that looks like. Because I think one thing we talk about a lot is remaining curious and seeing what comes to us instead of dictating to other people what exactly God should look like. And I think you're a pretty good example of that? Yeah.
So when I was in high school, there's this. I'm trying to keep it short. There's this long story about how I discovered more New Age belief systems. But like, my parents went to this bookstore, and I was a sheltered kid, so I was left alone. And I went to the New Age section, and I felt like, oh wow, this is such a weird, mystical section. I feel so taboo being here. I shouldn't be in this section. But I was able to find a book about past lives, and I think it was actually Michael Newton's books about like crossing over. And then some of this stuff it's really New Age, but I really found a lot of beliefs that I still hold true today about reading other people's stories of near-death experiences and also using hypnosis to get into past lives and just found more similarities than disconnects from different people, from various mediums, various people practicing past life regressions, from all the different practitioners of these New Age belief systems. And it became something where I realized like there's too much, or at least for me, I thought there's too much difference that they can't be just making this up. All these people across the world can't be making this up. There's too much similarities, even though there's enough differences. Something has to be here. So, I eventually, that's what led me to believe that like, I understand there's a higher power than me. They created me just as I am. I'm not some
defect in the baby production line.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hit that moment. I was like, if God is all powerful, like, why are the same people saying that, treating me like I'm a defect in the production line of, yeah.
So I realized like I'm not supposed to understand everything, probably not, but I'm okay being who I am, and that doesn't solve all my problems. But I was able to understand like religion is here to help people get to that same phase as it's supposed to, and so I could have whatever belief system I'm most associated with, and that would be okay for me. And that's what led me to find comfort in something greater than me, even though it's not the traditional dogma of like mainstream religion.
Yeah, and did that change at all when you got sober, or was it just like your spiritual development paused when you got real fucked up, right? Like
more so the latter. So I gave up my spiritual whole system, like. I think after high school, I realized, well, why do I need this anymore? Everything's going pretty well. I'm focusing on my job, focusing on my career, I'm focusing on all this other stuff. I don't need this spirituality. And so I just put it aside for a long, long time. And I really didn't pick it up again until I was in recovery. And I realized, like, even with 12-step, like, I was hesitant to go in 12-step because of these systems. Like, I had this notion, like, I don't need religion again. I had it. I haven't used it in so long. Spirituality, like I should be able to just understand this from a science way, think my way out of it, and that didn't work.
Yeah. and just from conversations with you, like it seems like you've also kind of folded back in some of those things that maybe you set aside for a while, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things, especially for a lot of people in the room, when we find religious systems don't work. It's really easy for us to throw that all out, right? I did not prep Ryan with this question, so how did that work? Because me and you talk about like biblical scriptures, right? Like we talk about things that are kind of from that stuff that you set aside.
Yeah, I think it's actually just been more of a discovery of just finding more belief systems and reading and figuring out what works for me. I mean, at a certain phase, there's a discovery process of reading about like ancient Egyptian philosophy or Taoism or Buddhism, or it's so many different systems out there. And I want to become knowledgeable about all these, but I also sort of want to just pick one eventually that I just focus and make my core belief system. And I lean towards, even though I haven't studied it as much as I want to yet, I lean towards one or two that I'm really focusing more so on. But it's still up in the air. Like Buddhism certainly has a lot of beliefs that I align with. Taoism does too. A Course in Miracles. I think probably those three are like on my high list. And I think as part of like the path to enlightenment is eventually getting to a point where I just focus on one of those.
Yeah. I think that there's this like really, really, really valuable stance of just being open-minded and curious. And, you know, the big book actually talks about that quite a bit, you know, where it says, take where religious people are right and leave the rest. Like, contempt prior to investigation. Nothing halts people's spiritual development like a closed mind. And that's the worst paraphrase. But there's a lot of that in there. And I hope I never get to be someone that thinks I know everything about anything, because that's where we stop growing. And so just real quick tonight, you know, we kind of talked about like this process of discovering who we naturally are and then working how life fits it. Was there anything as we were talking that you were like, oh, there's something like that happened in my life?
Yeah, definitely. Like I for the longest time, I've been in technology, and I'm not sure if everyone's aware, like with the whole advancement in AI, it's really throwing a lot of industries up in the air. I was laid off from 2 different jobs over the last, 4 years, and getting laid off is probably also along with getting fired is just very stressful, very traumatic. Your whole life is thrown up in the air. But even so, when what you started doing is not the same as what it was to begin with, that is really transformative too and frightening, because there's also no certainty of what the profession I'm doing is not going to be the same in 5 years as it is today, and that's extremely frightening. What I signed up to do is not going to be the same. I'm finding more excitement in it, but there's still that uncertainty that is just like concerning. And I could imagine it's probably the same thing as like if you were a telephone operator in the early 2000s, and what's going to happen to your job. If you're an elevator operator, that profession went belly up eventually. I don't think technology is going to necessarily be like that, but for me, it's like it just was so it tore that foundation from me that I had to do a lot of soul searching, and that led me to looking into alternatives like hypnotherapy, which I did a course in, more than a course. I did 500 hours and got a certification, but that was an idea for me to not only help others, but throughout the process, help myself and learn more, grow in spirituality. And even though I decided because of various life happenings and things happening that changed my direction recently, I decided to pursue more of that traditional technology path that I've been on before. I still have this other skill set in my back pocket, and part of me still wrestles with like, well, now I'm just going back, I'm backtracking. How is this aligning with my dharma? How is this aligning with what the universe has set for me to do while I'm on this earth? There's so many things like, am I my job? Am I my art? Am I my creations? Am I what I speak? And I've come to realize that, and it's hard to do that because I think we're taught as a society to just embody, I'm like you were saying, like you're a financial consultant, or I'm this person in an office. I'm more than that. I am a spiritual, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and for me, that is more important to rediscover who I am as a spiritual being while on this planet than to just associate myself with some physical thing, some construct that humanity has created. So, sure, I can create a beautiful diorama. I can code something. I can lead a team. I can help someone through a hypnotherapy session. But at the end of the day, all it is a means to an end to help me rediscover who I am spiritually, and to find that connection with my higher power, the life force that runs through all humanity and the earth, and to rebuild the best version of myself possible.
Yeah.
In their image and likeness.
That was good. Put that in a TikTok video. There's so many things I want to say, but we're running out of time. Like, it almost reminds me of the book Siddhartha, right? Where he just keeps trying on different lives until he finds one that fits, and the one that fits is the Buddha meditating under a tree, right? Like, I mean, he does everything from Mary's the highest in courtesan to running a taxi across a river. It's great. Everyone should read it. So final question. if there's just like one thing that maybe someone new in the room, someone going through transition, maybe someone struggling and they're not talking about it, like if there's one thing that you wish you would have heard earlier than you had to learn it for yourself, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing for me is if you need help, say so. Like for me, I was too pig-headed. I thought I could do this myself. I thought it's a program of, me, not we. I don't need anybody else to do this. And that just kept me out of the rooms. That kept me going back to relapse after relapse. That kept me from actually growing. Talking to somebody, it takes combating that ego that is inside of me to like say, I need help. I can't do this alone. I need to give up something. I can't do this anymore. I've gotten in so many things in my life where I get that the ego just like, I can do this. One more day I can accomplish this problem that is, it's killing me to like take on this project, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to solve this myself without anybody else's problem. I'm going to solve this addiction myself by just understanding it, reading enough science books. No.
Yeah.
That was
Capitalism teaches us that we can just like buck up and do it ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. But the universe teaches us something very different than that. Yeah.
Exactly. So like I would just say embrace like help. People in this room, people in recovery, they want to help, and you just have to ask. And I didn't do that. I didn't call my sponsor. I didn't talk to other fellows. I just ran out of meetings. I didn't like actually say when like, how you doing? Okay, I'm fine. I didn't actually open up and be vulnerable, and that just hurt me so much.
Yeah. People pleasing literally it's a fatal character defect because it doesn't allow other people to step in and help, right?
Exactly.
So, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. Let's hear it for Ryan. Thank you. Yeah, Ryan and his husband came over for dinner a few weeks ago, and after they left, Justin goes, they're just delightful. They're just delightful people. So we'll pause for a quick second to focus on generosity for a second. This space exists because people in this room help it stay going. There's a QR code right there. There's a little cash box over there. We're grateful for every contribution, no matter how big or how small, to keep us not only thriving where we're at, but also moving to where we're going. So definitely the QR code is on the cash box too if you don't have a chance to hit it. And so now it's time for heartbreaks. So kind of piggybacking off of what Ryan just said, right? Our systems tell us to be strong and put a strong face on, but like our bodies need that connection and support from everyone in the room. And so there's usually a little bit of a pause between heartbreaks. So just take that time between one heartbreak and the next to just whatever you believe about prayer, just send up some hope for the person that's going through it. So do we have any heartbreaks to start off? Ed?
Hi, my name is Ed, and I just want to, I'm doing my certification for my profession, which, as some of you know, I've been out of and been struggling to get back into my career. And I was really, when I was doing my continuing education today to keep my certificates, I was getting really upset because I was seeing, the people in their careers moving forward that were on the panels and things that were doing these sessions. And I wondered if I could ever get back to that career that I really loved and through my addiction lost, and not sure if I can get back to. So it was very hard, but I have to keep these, I have to keep hope, and I have to do these classes to keep my certification. So it's heartbreaking right now and scary because I want so much to get back. But it was hard. It's hard to do, but I do it. And because I hope that one day I can get back. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm an alcoholic. I learned a lesson again that your coworkers aren't necessarily your friends this past week. But when you get so close to somebody that they become like family, and you guys just always have each other's back at work, and then for some reason they just switch up on you, it does hurt. I'm not gonna lie. But I took this to tying into my celebration, I wrote this situation out on my little anger log thing. And how I'm going to handle it, I'm going to have to talk to this person and let them know how I felt about the situation, because obviously had nothing to do with them. But I am going to make them crawl for a couple weeks and just not speak to them. But it just really hurt. And it was just, it was just something that caught me off guard. And it, I don't know, I wanted to share that because it really hurt, like I said. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Harry.
5 years ago, on the 20th of this month, I broke my leg really badly. And my brother and sister-in-law literally came to my rescue and took me in and literally helped me get back on my feet. And I learned yesterday that my brother, who I've grown very close to, is in some stage of brain deterioration that was really hard to receive that news yesterday. Really scary, and I am really sad about it. Really sad.
We'll be praying for that. We have time for a couple more if anyone else has any. The timer doesn't have to be the end. Okay.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah. So a couple days ago, one of my friends told me that his nephew's son had jumped off of his school building and committed suicide at 16. And it was because he was being bullied. And it's just kind of crazy that nowadays, you know, people are still picking on others. But just like prayers for my friend's nephew's son, or my friend's nephew.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Any others?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hey, Alex.
I was recently in treatment with a friend, and I think last week he called me, and he had left the recovery home that he's in, and he's back to using. I've been trying to be there as much as I can for him, but it's also really hard when he's sharing his feelings about recovery and how it didn't work for him. And I've been struggling to still be there for him and support him, but also not let it affect my recovery.
Absolutely. Yeah, that can easily get in your head. A lot of times when we relapse, we like make justifications to kind of cover up that shame. So, well, thank you, everyone. And if you didn't have something, if you had something that maybe was on your heart or your mind, like reach out to someone else in the room. The people that you could probably spot people, and I'm looking around and I see a bunch of people we can trust and talk to. So definitely reach out if maybe something didn't happen, and we'll pray for you throughout the week as well. So tonight we are going to close out, and if you're new or if this is your first time with us, or maybe you haven't filled it out yet, again, you can grab a Connect card right back there. Just hand it to me, Donnie, Louise, and we'll get you some merch. So we'll close out tonight with the loving kindness prayer, which is a Buddhist prayer popular in recovery dharma. So if you will join me. May I be happy, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. Thanks everyone for coming. Hope to see you back next week.